The morning I told my son I was moving out of the mansion, the sun was just starting to rise behind the tall oak trees that lined the driveway. The air was quiet, still heavy with dew. I had been awake since 4, packing small boxes, folding my late husband Patrick's old shirts, and deciding what memories to keep. The house looked empty already, even though the furniture still stood where it always had. For 30 years, this mansion had been my home. It was where Patrick and I raised Dylan, where we hosted Sunday lunches and celebrated birthdays with too much laughter and too much food. But after Patrick passed away, the laughter faded, and the house became too big, too quiet, and too expensive for one person to handle. When I lost my job last month, it became clear I couldn't stay here anymore. I called Dylan early that morning and asked him to come over. He arrived hours later, wearing an expensive suit and sunglasses that looked like they belonged on a billboard, not a human face. He didn't hug me, didn't even take off his glasses. He just said, "So, what's the emergency, Mom?" I smiled, trying to stay calm. "No emergency, dear. I just wanted to let you know. I've decided to move into a small apartment downtown." He raised an eyebrow. "You mean you're selling the house?" "Not exactly," I said softly. "I'm just moving out. It's too much for me now. I'll rent a small place, something simple." For a second, he just stared at me, and then he laughed. It wasn't a nervous laugh or a kind laugh. It was a sharp, cruel laugh, the kind that stings long after it ends. "Perfect," he said, smirking. "No one will find you there." His words hit me like a slap. I blinked, trying to keep my face steady. "What do you mean by that?" I asked quietly. "Oh, come on, Mom," he said, waving his hand as if I were overreacting. "You'll have your peace. You always said you wanted quiet, right? And honestly, it's better this way. The house needs a new chapter. Maybe I'll help you sell it, get something useful out of it." "Useful," I repeated. The word felt heavy. "You mean money?" He shrugged, adjusting his cufflinks. "Well, what else would you do with it? It's just sitting here. The market's good right now, and if you're downsizing anyway." I didn't let him finish. I turned and looked out the window at the garden. Patrick had planted those rose bushes the year Dylan turned 10. He used to say they were like a family. You had to care for them gently, trim the bad parts, and never forget to water them, even when they looked strong. Dylan was still talking behind me, his voice full of numbers, deals, percentages. I barely heard him. I could only think about how much he'd changed. When Patrick was alive, Dylan used to run barefoot through this same garden, chasing the dog, laughing so hard he could barely breathe. Back then, he didn't care about fancy suits or investments. He just wanted to make his father proud. But after Patrick died, Dylan became someone else, sharper, louder, colder. I used to think it was grief. Now, I realized it was greed dressed as ambition. "Mom," he said, snapping me out of my thoughts. "Listen, I'll handle the paperwork. You don't need to worry. I'll call my lawyer, and we'll—" I turned to him. "Dylan, stop." He frowned, clearly annoyed. "What?" "I don't want you to handle anything," I said calmly. "This is my home. My decision." He scoffed. "You're making a mistake. You can't live alone in some tiny apartment. What will people think?" "People?" I smiled sadly. "You mean your friends? Your colleagues? You don't want them to think your mother isn't rich anymore." He didn't answer. Instead, he looked away, pretending to check his phone. That silence said more than words ever could. I felt something shift inside me. A small, quiet piece of me broke, not out of anger, but out of disappointment. My son wasn't the boy I remembered. He wasn't the young man Patrick had dreamed of raising. He had become a stranger wearing my son's face. Still, I refused to argue. I had spent too many years trying to protect him from the world, from pain, from responsibility. Now, I realized he needed to feel both. So I smiled. "It's all right, Dylan. You don't have to worry about me." He gave a half laugh. "Trust me, I'm not. That one hurt the most." He turned and left without a hug, without even a goodbye. His car engine roared down the driveway, loud and cold against the quiet morning air. I stood by the window until the sound faded, until only the chirping of birds filled the silence again. My hands trembled slightly as I folded another shirt into a box. Patrick's voice echoed in my head, as it often did when I felt weak. "Don't let pride steal your peace, Elaine." I looked around the empty rooms, at the walls that had heard every laughter, every fight, every secret. For the first time, I realized the house wasn't what held my memories. I did. And maybe it was time to let go of the walls that had turned into cages. As the sun rose higher, light spilled into the hallway, touching the family pictures on the wall. I walked past them, my fingers brushing each frame. There was Patrick, smiling with his arm around a much younger Dylan. I stopped and whispered, "He's lost, Patrick. But maybe this is how he'll find his way back." That afternoon, I called my lawyer. There were things I needed to change. Things that would protect what Patrick and I built. Not from strangers, but from someone we loved too much to see clearly. When I hung up, I felt calm for the first time in weeks. Dylan had laughed that morning, but the next time he did, it wouldn't be for long. He didn't know it yet, but the house, the one he saw as a trophy, was about to teach him a lesson he'd never forget. The day after Dylan laughed, clouds gathered over the mansion like a warning. By noon, the sky opened. Rain slid down the windows in long silver lines. I made tea and tried to read, but every drip from the old roof sounded like a clock counting down. When the first leak started in the library, I moved a chair and set a bowl under the steady tap. Then the hallway joined in, another soft, stubborn drip. Patrick used to climb the ladder himself with a hammer between his teeth and say, "A house talks to you if you listen." I listened now, and it sounded tired. The doorbell rang. I wasn't expecting anyone. When I opened the door, Leo Hart stood on the porch, hair damp, hands in his coat pockets. He was older than I remembered, but his eyes were the same, clear, steady kind. "Mrs. Rowan," he said, a little out of breath. "I heard about the roof from Mrs. Patel down the street. Do you need help?" I hesitated. Leo was Dylan's old business partner. They had started together, then split after a big argument I was never told about. I only knew Dylan called him a traitor. Still, Leo had always been polite to me. He used to bring fresh bread from the bakery when they were just starting out, when they worked from our dining table, and believed the world would clap for them. "There are 2 leaks," I said. "Maybe 3. "Let me look," he replied. He came in, left his shoes by the door without being asked, and followed the drip sounds like a detective. 10 minutes later, he had his coat off, sleeves rolled, ladder open, and a blue tarp spread across the worst patch of the roof. He moved without show, like a man used to doing the dull part before the ribbon cutting. "Temporary fix," he said, climbing down. "But it should hold through the storm. You'll need a roofer when it clears." "Thank you," I said. My voice surprised me. It sounded small. He brushed rain from his hair and looked around the library. "I always liked this room," he said. "Patrick taught me chess here once. He beat me in 8 moves and laughed like he'd won the World Cup." I smiled before I could stop myself. He pretended to be humble, but he loved winning. We had tea at the kitchen table because it felt less formal. The storm got louder. I told him I was moving out. He listened without interrupting, hands around the warm cup like he was keeping a small fire alive. "I'm sorry," he said when I finished. "This house meant a lot to many people." "It did," I said. "Now it's just big and empty. And expensive." He nodded. "I get that. I grew up in a small place. My mother used to say, if a house can't hear your laughter from the front to the back, it's too big for your heart." I laughed softly. "Your mother sounds like someone I would have liked." He looked at the ceiling, listening to the rain. "Mrs. Rowan, I didn't come only for the roof. I wanted to tell you something, and I hope it won't sound rude. I left Dylan's company because I couldn't keep selling buildings to people who wanted to turn neighborhoods into museums for the rich. I started something new, Heart House Foundation. We buy old properties and use them for good. Shelters, training centers, preschool by day, community classes by night. Places that live all day long." I felt the room tilt, just slightly, not from shock but from recognition. He kept speaking, gentle and careful. "I know this is personal. I know Dylan will hate me for even saying it. But this house could be a heartbeat for a lot of people. You wouldn't have to sell it for profit. You could set rules. You could keep part of it for yourself if you wanted, a cottage, a garden. It would carry Patrick's name if you like. A home that keeps working." I looked at his hands. No fancy watch. No ring. No nervous tapping. Just stillness. Dylan always moved like the world owed him attention. Leo moved like the world needed care. "This will make Dylan furious," I said. "I know," he said. "He thinks I stole clients." "I didn't. I just stopped selling to his kind of buyer." He paused. "I won't push you. I came because the roof was calling for help. That's all." We walked the house. He asked about the rooms, not the price. "What happened here?" he'd ask, and I would answer with a memory. Patrick teaching chess, Dylan's 12th birthday, the winter when the power went out and we cooked soup on the fireplace. He listened like a student. At the back, we ended up in the garden where the rain had softened into a mist. The roses were heavy with water. Leo touched a leaf with 2 fingers, like he was checking a pulse. Houses remember, he said quietly. But only if people keep telling them stories. The idea came to me like a shy guest stepping into the doorway. Small, not loud. It didn't feel like revenge. It felt like alignment. Patrick's values. My need for peace. The roof's tired voice. Dylan's hard laugh. All of it forming a line I could follow. What would it take? I asked. Legally. To make sure the house can't be flipped. To protect it from ego. A charitable trust with use restrictions, he said, almost apologetically. Boring words. Strong walls. Could I keep a small part? Somewhere to sit on weekends. A place for Patrick's roses. A life estate for a cottage, he said. If there's a cottage. If not, we build a simple one. Nothing showy. For walls and a door that stays unlocked during the day. I breathed out long and slow. I'll talk to my lawyer. He nodded, no smile, as if smiles were premature. Whatever you decide, I'll send a roofer tomorrow. I'll cover it. Don't argue. I wasn't going to, I said. Thank you. When he left, he carried the ladder back with quiet care and stepped into the rain like he trusted it. I watched him walk down the driveway and vanish behind the wet oaks. Inside, I dried the bowls and put them away. The leaks had slowed. The house had stopped crying for now. I called my lawyer. My voice didn't shake this time. I asked clear questions and wrote down clear answers. Deed correction, charitable conveyance, use limits, governance, audits, life estate. Words that would have bored me last year now felt like armor. After the call, I stood at the window again. The sky was clearing. A pale band of light opened over the trees. Dylan would be angry. He would say I was ungrateful, dramatic, foolish. He would try to push. He always pushed. But I wasn't moving because of anger. I was moving toward a promise, one I made to Patrick when we still had time. If the house ever stops serving us, he had said, make sure it serves someone. I rested my palm on the cool glass and let the last of the rain slide past my reflection. Tomorrow I would pack more boxes. I would meet my lawyer. I would make choices that would hold when the next storm came. And if Dylan laughed again, the echo would be brief. The house had found its next voice. It was not his. It was not even mine. It belonged to the people who would walk through these doors with fear in their eyes and leave with a key in their pocket. Somewhere above the kitchen, a final drop fell into an empty bowl and went silent. The clock in the hall began to sound normal again. Tick-tock, steady, sure. I wiped the counter, rinsed 2 cups, and turned off the light. The house felt lighter. Not because I was staying, because it knew it would not be wasted. Dylan arrived just after sunset, when the sky was the color of burnt orange, and the halls were full of moving boxes. He walked in without knocking, like he always did, and looked around as if the house already belonged to him. He touched a box with 1 finger and smiled in a way that wasn't kind. So it's real, he said. You're actually leaving. I'm moving, I answered. There's a difference. He loosened his tie, tossed his keys on the marble table, and sat like a king who had returned to his throne. Good. The place needs fresh energy. I spoke to a buyer today. Quiet money, fast close. We'll sell the house, pay your rent for a few years, and put the rest into my next project. Everyone wins. He said we, as if I were a junior employee asking for permission. I kept my hands folded on my lap. I'm not selling to your buyer, I said. He laughed short and sharp. Mom, please. You can't manage a property like this. You don't even have a job now. Let me handle it. You don't need to handle anything, I said, calm but firm. I've handled this house for 30 years. He leaned forward. You put me on the deed, remember? After Dad died. You said it was time I learned responsibility. Well, I did. Now let me use it. His words were rehearsed. He'd likely repeated them in the mirror, in the car, into the air that always agreed with him. I stood, walked to the sideboard, and took out a folder. Inside were copies of the new documents, clean print, clear lines, short paragraphs that did not shake. I set the folder in front of him. What's this? He asked. Read. He flipped the first page with a lazy grin. His eyes moved once, then again. The grin fell. He turned the second page, then the third. His jaw set hard. Where is my name? His voice lost its smooth edge. I removed it, I said. Legally. With counsel. The house is mine again. He stared at me like he was trying to recognize a stranger. You can't do that. I can, I said. And I did. He pushed the folder back too hard. It slid across the table and hit a cup. The cup rattled and stopped. He stood abruptly and began to pace, hands on his hips, breath sharp. "This is insane," he said. "You're letting other people get into your head. Is it Leo? Did Leo tell you to do this? He's a parasite. He steals ideas and wraps them in charity paper." "Don't talk about Leo that way," I said. "He helped when the roof gave up. He came with a ladder, not a contract." Dylan stopped pacing and pointed a finger at me like a judge. "You are choosing my enemy over your own son." "I am choosing values over ego," I said softly. "I am choosing peace over noise. I am choosing your father's promise over your plans." He laughed again, but the sound broke in the middle. "Values don't pay bills, Mom." "They do," I said. "Just not your kind of bills." He walked to the window and stared into the dark yard. The old oak trees made slow shadows on the lawn. His shoulders lifted and fell. "Do you know what people will say?" he asked without turning. "They'll think I failed you. They'll think I abandoned you. They'll think I'm a bad son." I took a breath. "People will think what they want. I am done living for their thoughts." He turned, eyes bright with anger. "You're punishing me." "No," I said, and for the first time, I let my voice be as clear as the ink on the pages. "I'm teaching you. I gave you my trust. You laughed at my struggle. You wanted this house to be a tool. I want it to be a home, even if the home changes shape." He looked at the folder again, as if the words might rearrange themselves if he glared hard enough. "You'll change it back," he said. "You always do. You cave after a few days. You hate confrontation." "Not today," I said. A silence stretched between us, long and tight. The clock in the hall ticked like a metronome for a song we weren't singing anymore. "I met with my lawyer," I added. "I also met with a financial advisor. I'm fine. I have a plan. I will move into a small apartment. I will keep the garden cottage here as a life estate. And the main house will go into a charitable foundation with use rules." He blinked. "A foundation?" "Yes," I said. "It will be called Heart House. It will serve women and children who need a safe place to stand until their feet learn courage again. There will be tutoring, job workshops, and a small kitchen that never turns anyone away. There will be audits. There will be transparency." He shook his head slowly, as if clearing water from his ears. "You're serious?" "I am." He took a step closer, almost pleading now. "Mom, think. If you sign that away, it's gone. No second chances. No equity. No legacy." "There will be legacy," I said. "Just not a plaque with your name on it." He looked wounded then, truly wounded, like a boy who has been told that magic is not real. He swallowed. "Why do you hate me?" "I don't," I said, and I meant it. "I love you enough to stop feeding what hurts you." He closed his eyes for a moment, then opened them with a colder calm. "If you do this, I'll fight it." "You can try," I said. "But the papers are clean. The trust is strong. The board is ready. I have witnesses. I kept receipts and dates. I did not act in anger. I acted in daylight." He picked up his keys. The metal clinked like a small bell. He held them tight, knuckles white. "I hope you enjoy your silence," he said. "It's all you'll have left." I smiled, not cruelly, not sweetly, just with relief that didn't need anyone's permission. Silence is where I hear the truth. He stared at me one last time, as if memorizing the moment to use it later like evidence. Then he left. The door shut with a soft click. Not a slam. A boundary. I sat down, folded the folder back into the drawer, and let my hands rest. They did not tremble. The house exhaled. Even the boxes seemed to settle into their corners, as if they had been waiting for this exact breath. My phone buzzed. A message from Leo, roofer scheduled for 9 a.m. Also spoke to a grants advisor. "No pressure. Just options. Hope you got some rest." I typed back, "Thank you. Papers ready. Signing soon." I walked to the garden door and opened it. Night air drifted in, cool, damp, honest. Somewhere in the distance a train passed, steady and sure, not rushed, not afraid. I pictured Patrick at the chessboard, touching a pawn with 2 fingers, seeing 5 moves ahead, then 6, then 7. I turned off the lights one by one. Library. Hall. Kitchen. The house did not protest. It understood. Tomorrow would bring signatures and witnesses, and the kind of quiet work that changes everything without fireworks. On the dining table, I left one thing in the center, a small silver key. It used to open a locked drawer where Patrick kept letters from his students. I would give that key to Leo after the signing. Not because he needed it, but because symbols matter. A key can say, "Use this well. Open what should open. Keep what should be kept." I went to bed and slept like I hadn't in months. No dreams, no storms, just the soft feeling that the worst of the breaking had already happened. Morning would ask for courage. I had it now. The day of the signing was clear and bright, as if the sky wanted no confusion. I wore a simple blue dress and carried the folder that had changed everything. Leo met me at the front steps with 2 board members and the lawyer. They spoke softly, like people entering a church. The house felt awake. Sunlight moved along the floors the way memories do. Slow, gentle, sure. We sat at the long dining table. The papers were neat, the pens heavy. The lawyer explained each page again in plain words. The house would belong to Hart House Foundation. The trust would block any sale or flip. Every year there would be audits. Programs would serve women and children. The garden cottage would remain mine for life. I listened, asked the last questions I had, and nodded. No tremble, no rush. Just steady breath. Halfway through, the front door opened hard. Dylan walked in with a younger lawyer at his side. He looked tired and angry, like someone who had been running toward a door that kept moving. His eyes scanned the table and the witnesses. "What is happening?" he asked, though he already knew. "We are finishing," I said. His lawyer tried to speak first. "Mrs. Rowan, we have concerns." The foundation's attorney raised a hand. All notices were sent. All rights were handled. If Mr. Rowan wishes to file something later, he may. But today is not his to stop. Dylan stared at me. "Mom, please. Don't do this because you're upset with me." "I'm not doing this because I'm upset," I said. "I'm doing this because your father asked me to keep this home useful when it stopped being a home." He shook his head. "Dad never asked for a charity." The house seemed to lean forward at that. The lawyer reached into a second folder. "Mrs. Rowan asked me to hold this until today," he said. He placed a sealed envelope on the table. "To Elaine. Open if the house needs a new purpose." It was Patrick's handwriting. My hands felt warm as I broke the seal. Inside was a short letter. Patrick's words were simple, the way he spoke when he wanted truth to land. "If the house ever becomes a weight, set it free. Give it to work that feeds people. Give it a door that stays open. And keep a place in the garden for yourself. Roses need a keeper." I handed the letter to Dylan. He read it twice. His mouth tightened. This, I think, was the first shock that reached his heart, and not just his pride. He looked like a boy again, not a brand. The lawyer turned to him gently. "There is also a clause your father signed years ago. It allowed Mrs. Rowan to revoke your co-ownership at her discretion, for any reason related to misuse, pressure, or disrespect. He wrote it to protect both of you." Dylan's eyes went bright, then dark. He looked at me, and for a moment I thought he might shout. Instead, he sat down. He didn't speak. The young lawyer beside him whispered something about timing and options. Dylan did not answer. I signed. One page, then another. Each signature felt like placing a stone in a firm wall that would stand when storms came. Leo signed next, the board members followed. The foundation attorney slid the final page into the binder like a quiet ending. When it was done, we stood in the front hall. The house looked bigger somehow, not because of space, but because of purpose. Leo turned to me. "Thank you," he said. "We'll honor this." I reached into my pocket and brought out the small silver key from the dining room drawer. "This unlocks nothing important," I said, smiling. It unlocked letters from Patrick's students. "Keep it as a reminder. Open what should open." Leo took the key like it mattered. "We will." Dylan spoke at last. "You have made a mistake," he said, but his voice was softer now, tired. "You think this makes you strong. It just makes you alone." I shook my head. "No, Dylan. Aloneness is when a big house is full of silence and someone laughs at his mother in the kitchen. Today I am not alone. Today the house has people again, even if you are not one of them yet." He had no answer for that. He left without slamming the door. The young lawyer followed him out like a shadow that had lost its shape. Work began quickly. Contractors came to repair the roof for good. Electricians checked the old wires. Volunteers washed windows and walls. A woman from the neighborhood brought a thermos of soup and stayed to scrub baseboards with a song under her breath. Rooms that had waited too long filled with voices. Laughter returned, not the loud kind that tries to be heard, but the warm kind that settles in. We chose a name over the entry, Hart House, in memory of Patrick Rowan. A sign maker carved the letters into a wooden board that still smelled like the forest. We hung it low enough that a child could run a hand across it and feel the grooves. The first week, the kitchen opened for morning tea and late soup. The second week, A small classroom upstairs took in 5 children who needed a quiet place to read after school. The third week, 3 beds were made up with clean sheets for mothers who had their first safe sleep in months. They cried in whispers. The house held them. Dylan tried to push back in public. A blog post appeared with his picture and a sharp headline. Son warns. Foundation misuses family mansion. Leo answered with a simple statement and receipts. We shared budget plans, timelines, and the charter. We did not argue. We showed our work. People made up their own minds. Most of them came to help. One evening, months later, I was trimming roses by the cottage when a car turned into the drive and stopped near the gate. Dylan stepped out. No suit this time. No glasses. He walked slowly, hands in his pockets, like someone entering a place they don't trust but need. He looked at the garden, at the windows lit up with class time, at the shadow of a child running past a curtain like a fish in water. He took a breath that sounded heavy. I brought canned food, he said, holding up a bag. And school supplies. They're in the trunk. Thank you, I said. I can bring more if it helps. It helps, I said. He stood there as if waiting for me to fix the past. I did not try. I pointed to the side door. They're packing hygiene kits inside, I said. You can help if you like. He nodded. What do I do? Ask, I said. And listen. He went in. I stayed with the roses. From the open window, I heard a volunteer say, Hello, can you fold these towels? And Dylan's quiet answer, Sure. His voice did not sound like the one that had laughed in my kitchen. It sounded like a voice practicing how to be small and useful. Days became weeks. He kept coming, no fanfare, no posts. He carried boxes, wiped tables, learned names. He did not ask about the deed. He did not ask for credit. He just worked. People noticed. No one clapped. That was better. One late afternoon, after a workshop ended, he waited by the garden gate. Mom, he said, not looking at me, if I keep showing up, could we talk later about helping on the board? Not now. Later. When I've earned it. I thought of the clause his father had signed, of the letter, of the boy who had run through these roses barefoot. I thought of the man who had laughed and the man who now folded towels. 6 months, I said. No promises. Just 6 months of service. Then we'll talk. He nodded, eyes wet in a way he tried to hide. Okay. That night, we held the small opening for Heart House. No press. Just neighbors, volunteers, a few families, and a photo of Patrick near the door. Leo gave a short speech and thanked the hands that had scraped, repaired, cleaned, painted, carried, cooked, taught. He thanked me last. When the guests left, I walked the hall alone. The air smelled like soap and new paint, and a little like soup. I placed my palm on the wall and felt nothing mystical, just the steady quiet of a place with purpose. On the way back to the cottage, I stopped beside the roses. A breeze moved through them, soft as a hand. I thought of the first morning Dylan laughed, and how small I felt. Then I thought of this evening, and how full the house sounded. The twist was not only the deed. The real twist was what the house became when we stopped trying to own it. A door that stays open is sometimes the strongest lock. And a son who learns to serve can be more than any heir. I turned off the garden light. The house at last remembered. And it was ready to keep remembering, one quiet, honest day at a time.